Hi, everyone. Hey, today we are going to be talking about tests. Now, I know everyone loves to take tests, right? Said no one ever on the whole planet. And you know what else? Right now, I think everyone feels like they're being tested. Tests can take us by surprise. They come without warning, and sometimes it'll make us wonder why bad things are happening when we feel like we have been faithfully pursuing the Lord. Notice, I said faithfully, not perfectly. Now, our test is the one we're going to read about today is in Genesis 22. And it's 1 through 19 of the verses, and I'm going to read it to you. But in here, it's going to be about how Abraham was tested by God. And boy, was he. I'm going to read it right now. Abraham, this is God talking. He says, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. And this is the crazy part, and offer him there as a burnt offering on the mountain of which I shall tell you. So, I just kind of feel confused here, and I kind of feel like Abraham felt confused too. Didn't God make a covenant with him? Didn't he tell him that he would have as many descendants as the stars? We know that in Scripture, and yet I'm sure Abraham had a lot of questions, and yet he didn't ask any. At least they're not here. All right. I have a lot of questions. I always have a lot of questions when I'm reading the Bible. But what it says is that Abraham rose early the next morning. He saddled his donkey. He grabbed a couple other guys. He took his son, Isaac. All right. He brought some wood, and he went to the place that God told him. So, on the third day, all right, so he rose early in the morning. That's, I could see that. If you got to do this test, you just want to get it over with, right? But he had to walk for 2 days. I have questions. What were they talking about? What do you talk about as you're walking for 2 days with your son who you're going to offer as a burnt offering? I just think that is a really good question for me to ask when I get to heaven. But they did it, and on the third day, it says, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from afar. So then Abraham said to the two other guys, look, you guys stay here with the donkey. Now, this is where you have to listen really carefully, because right here, these 4 words, I and the boy will go over there, that's talking to the mountain, and worship, and then 4 more words, and come again to you. All right? So in Hebrews 11:17, it talks about Abraham. That's the chapter of faith. It's the hall of faith, if you will. But Abraham is known as someone who had amazing faith. And in Hebrews, it talks about how Abraham thought, well, if I have to kill my son, God is going to raise him from the dead. How do you get that kind of faith? I want that kind of faith. Yes, I have another question. But you know what? Was Abraham perfect? No. He wasn't perfect. Abraham laughed at God when God told him he was going to have a son in his old age. He also let's see, I wrote it right here. He also tried to pass off his beautiful wife, okay, to save his own skin, not once, but twice as his sister. And he also thought it was a good idea to take his maidservant as wife number 2. Not really good choices, right? Not really good decisions. No, he was not a perfect man. But you know what? He had faith. He had such faith in God, which honestly makes me feel like I have a chance, right? So we're going to keep reading right here. We're at verse 6. So Abraham took the wood and laid it on his son Isaac. Really? You laid it on your son who you're going to, burn up as an offering? I don't know. I don't think I would have done that, but he was old, right? He took the fire in his hand and his knife and they both went up the mountain together. Now, I'm not the only one who has questions. Isaac has questions too. Isaac, at this point, he is not a little kid. Isaac is a man at this point. And he noticed something. Father, he said, behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And then Abraham simply said, God will provide the lamb for the burnt offering. So they kept going. They kept going. Now, I'm going to turn this over. Right here, it gets a little bit crazy. Not only, in my opinion, is Abraham obviously being tested, but I feel like Isaac is being tested as well. And let me tell you why. Abraham gets up there, he builds the altar, and then he ties up his son, and he lays him on top of the altar. I think that is a test for Abraham, because if I was an adult and my dad started doing that to me, I'd be out of there. I'd be out of there so quick. But he didn't. He had faith in God to provide. Both Abraham and his son did. And then Abraham reached out his hand and he took the knife to slaughter his own son. And then, thankfully, the angel of the Lord called out to him, Abraham, Abraham, and he stopped him. Do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your one and only son from me. Abraham then looked up and there was a lamb so God did provide the lamb. He provided the lamb, Isaac got up, okay? So I still have more questions. I want to know what they talked about on the walk home. I don't know. I just feel like that would have been a long 3-day walk, right? But the thing about tests, when we get to the other side of a test, especially a difficult one, we can feel like we're smarter, we can feel like we're stronger, and sometimes, always, we're very grateful when they're over. And some of us, even through our tests, in the midst of them, we glorify God. Abraham was an ordinary person that God used to do extraordinary things through him, and God could be using any of us right now through tests to do his work and his will. So stay strong, guys. Have a great day.